Well, I'm excited to have Gary Seale. Gary's been patient in coming to speak for us, but Gary is the principal of TrueCon, and it's a business-to-business sales and marketing service company, and he's been doing that for a long while, and so any of the, he does sales consulting, marketing consulting, mostly from a business-to-business point of view. And he's got a BBA from University of Texas at Arlington, as well as an MBA from Texas State. And his hobby is photography. He's also, like me, he is part of Toastmasters International, and he's going to tell you about a Monday morning meeting. Meets bright and early, 6:45 if I recall.
Dark and early.
And but he is a distinguished Toastmaster from the Toastmasters International. So, Gary, thanks for coming and talking to us.
All right. Thank you, Craig. Good morning. It's a little chilly out there, so if you got coffee, that'll warm us up, that sort of thing. So, when we started talking about what we could do to help job seekers, I know that for decades, I was in a corporate sales world, and I only called on specific people at large companies, and I traveled internationally and things of that nature. So when I started my own business 8 years ago, I had to transition into a very small business-to-business world and get involved in this whole concept of networking locally in the Austin area, which was foreign to me. I didn't understand it, I didn't know it, and so I had a learning curve to go through. So part of this is things that I've experienced over the past 8 years and learned the easy way, the hard way, so let's just dive into it. One of the favorite verses that I've had over the years, and when I talk about or start thinking about, it's time to bail out, I need a J-O-B, is that, this whole concept of being in a difficult situation produces ultimately character and hope, but the middle word is something we're going to drive home, is this aspect of perseverance. And perseverance means that, going back out time after time. I would say that for me, when I'm addressing my customers and things of that nature, and I've had a bad time, it's really a daily approach. That's why we have nighttime and sleep. We can only do what we can do in our 24-hour period, then we refresh and get back out there the next morning. So a couple of scriptures that I referenced after we go, what we're looking at is the amount of effort that we put into it. I have a friend that is now 61. A lot of us are 50 plus, and he has become a pro at finding new jobs because he networks extremely well, and he's out there searching and using every avenue he can to plug into that job market. So it really is an all-out effort. It's so easy to lose your focus and let somebody say, well, volunteer at this school or go here and do that, and quite frankly, you just can't afford to do that. So from that standpoint, there's a great quote. One of the writers that I've followed for literally years is Chuck Swindoll. And Swindoll has a great quote in a book called Living Beyond the Level of Mediocrity, is that we tend to focus on ourselves pretty heavily. We'll focus on circumstances, on others, or what others think about us, what others, perceive that we are, and on ourselves. But if we lose focus, if we focus on God and His power and His authority and His care and His concern, then we can have that peace. And when we have that peace, that allows us to really use our own faculties, all the capabilities that you have. And then if we start into this whole concept of worry, it just locks you up and puts you in a very narrow band. So I would say this is some of the greatest advice I could give as far as being able to go out there and use all the tools that you have to find that next position. So one of the things I like is Scripture gives us a lot of concepts of regular daily advice on how we can operate and live. So this whole concept of perseverance is that we can be mature and complete. When you go out there and you present your experience, you've got literally decades of things that you've done in the past that shows you have perseverance. And this knowledge, so what are we here in Job Seekers for? We're gaining knowledge about the whole concept of finding a new position. And today, hopefully we're going to impart knowledge about networking, which is an aspect of perseverance. So, what's our goal? Obviously, we're looking for a job. Duh. And so, what we're going to talk about is the power of personal contact, and then how to get those personal contacts, where to get those personal contacts, using a CRM, a contact resource management tool, and some of the guerrilla network marketing things that you can do, which are very low cost. And so, we'll work through that process. One of the things that happens when we go out to networking opportunities, we're going to find people that are representing their companies. And so from that standpoint, there are going to be salespeople and general managers and things of that nature, possibly not the hiring manager at a networking group. But what we're looking to do is find somebody that can recommend us or tell us where to go. So I think when we walk through all these possibilities, there are going to be some groups where you would actually meet a hiring manager. If you go to a industry-specific monthly meeting, there will possibly be folks there. However, the most of the time, you're going to meet people that can recommend you. And so most people do know 8, 10, 15, 18 other people that if you impress upon them that you've got that capabilities, the light's going to come on and they'll be able to recommend you. So one of the times, if we have time towards the end of the talk, we're going to be talking about some actual skill sets, but it really can be a lot of fun. You're going to meet people that are very pleasant, very nice, want to help you. Some people are going to be more cool just simply because they don't know you, but it can be a fairly amount of, relatively easy. Now, here's what I see sometimes, and I go to a couple of large networking groups every week. I go to one Wednesday mornings early. You're invited, called Metropolitan Breakfast Club. It meets in the Longhorn Club at the University of Texas. All you have to do is Google that, sign up. It's an $18 breakfast. But there will be 75 to 100 people there, and inevitably there will be a couple of 3 job seekers coming in. And I go up to them and go, well, what field are you looking for? And they really can't articulate that. Well, I say, give me a card. I don't have a card put together. And you'll be asked to stand up and present yourself briefly. In that particular situation, you have about 10 seconds. And so you might say, I'm Gary Seale. I've been in the sales and networking business for the last 30 years, and I'm looking for my next opportunity in sales. Bam, 8, 10 seconds. So you have to have that nailed down. So an elevator speech. If you go to another group, you might be given 60 seconds. And so from that standpoint, you get to elaborate on your capabilities and experience and why somebody should hire you. And then we're going to talk a fair amount throughout the slide deck about the follow-up process. We have several different recommendations. Nothing's written in concrete. But be sure you have those things, and I don't necessarily recommend that you have a printed resume in your pocket, but obviously you have it on your PC, and when you meet these people and get their email, if they look like or they actually say, send me your resume, then that's an easy way to do that. You may occasionally have a paper, but we're living in an e-world. So what I'm finding out also, if you're networking with the younger crowd, the millennials, they're not necessarily carrying a card anymore. But they will take your email and send you their contact information electronically, or you may have an app on your cell phone where you're able to transfer your contact information. So just be prepared there. I'm old-fashioned. I like business cards. And so it's an easy way to communicate what you're doing. If you're just starting out in this world, one of the things that you should do, and we're talking about connections, is Find people that you've worked with before, if they're still in the area, or close friends that are in your particular industry, and schedule a coffee and go out and sit down with those folks. So that's what we want to do. And so in that standpoint, we don't want to appear needy. We want to appear like we have something valuable to offer. But people like to be asked about them and their industry, what's going on. And you can ask some general questions that will open up. So I don't necessarily say, hey, Jeff, how's sales going in your company? Nobody really appreciates that. But I would ask something like, how are the trends in your industry? So if we were in Houston right now and dealing with an oil field services company, and we ask that question because crude's gone down to $30 a barrel and things are really tight, it might not be very good. So that might not be a place to go. And then finally, after you've warmed up that conversation, it might be time to say, well, this is what I've done. Do you know, have you seen any opportunities out there that match my skill set? Or can you refer me to somebody else? I would say it's time to be fairly direct. Don't hint around. Those of us that have an English heritage, if you're watching Downton Abbey, the English are just not very direct in America. We tend to be, I see a smile right there, a Downton Abbey fan. So they defer and they say perhaps and maybe. We're out of the perhaps world. We want to ask directly, can you refer me to somebody else? And so a neat way to do that is just receive that email that says, here's John's contact information, here's George's, they're in this market, and I can send you a resume. He'll be contacting you soon, and we'll talk about the whole process of contacting. Now, when we start to attend a networking meeting, there's typically 20 or 30 minutes in advance of the meeting where people are just shaking hands, walking around. Then they'll have a prescribed program, and then afterwards, people will drift out. When you sign up to go to something and it says we're going to meet from 9 to 10, be sure and show up at 8:20, 8:30, that sort of thing. Come in with all your guerrilla networking tools and then present yourself or start walking around and meeting people. And then what you want to do is have a goal. There's a gentleman named Scott Carley that teaches a networking class, and he says you should meet 10 people and set 3 appointments out of that particular group. I would say that if you meet 3 to 5, you've done a pretty good job. And then what you want to do is listen pretty intently to the introductions. I may have a repetition later in the slide here, but you're going to hear somebody that introduces themselves. I'm with XYZ company that was in your field. I would specifically walk over after the meeting and try to get in touch with that guy, meet them. So I don't know if you've ever gone through any networking protocol, this whole thing of introducing yourself, gaining cards, finding out where the opportunities are. Most of the time, you don't want to walk up and go, hi, I'm Gary Seale, and stick a card in their nose. What you want to do is go in and ask some of those engaging questions. Why are you coming to this particular networking group? Or what did you think about the presentation today? This is what I learned. Love to hear what you think, that sort of thing. And then, oh, by the way, before we get away, I'd like to have your card if you don't mind. And 99% of the time, if they have a card, they will give it to you. If they're very interested, they'll ask you. But once you've got that card, then there's a follow-up process that we'll go through. We'll talk about that. So, for example, a friend of mine and I run a networking group down at Texas Land and Cattle every Friday at noon. It's called Christian Business Leads Group. No more cost than what you decide to eat for lunch, and we meet there every time. This will be a great way to come in and practice your elevator speech, meet people, and things of that nature. I'll be there. So please come on down and practice your skill set that we're talking about today. Once again, we want this elevator speech memorized, and you want to start with a name, your skill set, experience, and then you're looking for opportunities in this particular field. I've had people come up and say, well, I'm thinking about changing, or I need to change, and I'm just looking for anything in management. It just doesn't help you. You need to be very specific about that, but then when you sit down with somebody, you'll be able to articulate more of the experience that you had and where you're looking to go. Be prepared. If you're trying to move outside your past, it's going to be more difficult. So I've had experience in industrial sales, high tech, and now that I do contract sales, I have 5 or 6 industries that I've been in. If I can sit down with that person and say, oh, I understand the commercial insurance business because I had to do underwriting capabilities, and they're a banker, they also have to go through an underwriting process before they give anybody a loan. So it resonates with you, so that's where your experience comes in handy while you're doing this whole networking aspect of things. And so we definitely want to follow up. So this whole concept is that when we meet somebody and get an opportunity to talk with them, I'm going to remember that person more strongly than a person that I just saw stand up and introduce themselves for 30 or 45 seconds. And by the way, what I would say also in this networking world, that you need to go back multiple times. A lot of times people have been going to these things for a long time, and new people stick with them for a short period of time, and then it kind of blows past them. So be sure and follow up. Once you've got their card, or you can find out that they have a roster. For example, Metropolitan Breakfast Club that I mentioned has a website, and unlike a lot of clubs, everybody that's a member of that club is listed publicly. And so if you miss somebody that you wanted to talk with and you can remember a company name or a first name, you can go back and search the database and find a way to contact them. And then once again, we're asking for referrals because they may not be a hiring manager. I would say also that take something at a networking meeting that you want to write on, either it be a 3x5 card or a sheet of paper, and note everybody that's standing up. I would prioritize it once again when a person looks like they might be a good networking opportunity. Pick 2 or 3 of those folks and then go meet them after the meeting to introduce yourself. Now, the protocol is that if somebody's engaged in a conversation, you simply can't barge in. And I've seen people do that, literally look like a fullback coming in with their card to bounce them off. So if somebody is face-to-face, the protocol, if 2 people were standing right here, would be for me to step back and make some level of eye contact with those folks and listen, not try to listen in on the conversation, but you can tell they're conversing. And then they will recognize that you're there and invite you in, but don't barge in. Or if they have open language a little bit more and it's very casual, you might get a little closer. If they don't break up their conversation, then they're your number 1 priority, but number 2 is over here, go ahead and migrate over to number 2 because they're going to slip out the door sooner or later. So just be careful about this protocol. And of course, everybody has this, what's the term? My space, right? So in America, our space is what? 18 to 24 inches? Who knows this? It's a couple of 3 feet, right? Is that I don't want to breathe your breath and your, what's that term? The little licking thing that sprays out. We don't want that. And so certainly we don't want to get shoulder to shoulder. My problem is if there's a lot of noise crowd in the background, my hearing tends to diminish because I'm older than you guys. And you have to get a little closer and lean in. Just don't lean in all the way and do the shoulder to shoulder touch. Some people are huggers. Some people are handshakers. I wouldn't recommend hugs right off the bat. Shake hands, male, female, opposite, whatever. And then they may hug you later on. There are a number of ways to find people. A lot of people in the business-to-business world are out there mining LinkedIn. So you can set specific parameters and go out and find people there. Facebook is more casual. Manta is a business-to-business thing. If you're looking in Yelp, they'll probably not give you a name, but they'll give you a company criteria. So if you said, I'm prospecting, I got a chance to visit with Jeff, before. He has a history in the fast food world, and perhaps we wanted to look at all the fast food companies south of, the river, Lady Bird Lake, that sort of thing. You can pull that parameter up and look for people like that. Google Plus is out there. You can start building groups there. They haven't been as successful as Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, but that's still out there. And if you're trying to do an SEO type of aspect, that's a good way to do it because Google tends to mine their own store. They look for people that are working inside their parameters. Now, places you can go. So I've just gave you a couple of recommendations, but if you're looking for a business-to-business group, there's meetup.com. Anybody familiar with meetup.com? About 50% of the group. There are, I believe, in this particular parameter, within 25 miles of this zip code, there are 200 business-to-business groups that you could possibly participate in. Some of them are membership-type groups where they would charge you. Some people are wide open. Almost everybody, without exclusion, is looking for visitors. They love for new people to come in. So we're in that particular parameter. There are other groups that meet morning, breakfast, late in the afternoon, early evening, that sort of thing. Anybody ever participate in BNI International? A couple of folks. BNI is an international networking group. It tends to cater more towards small business to consumer type industries. But if you're looking there, probably not hiring managers, but people that could refer you. And also they tend to be very geographically specific. So if you want to stay out here in Northwest Austin, Cedar Park area, then there are groups that you could go to and visit. They'd love to have you. I think they even give you a free breakfast the first time in, so that's not a bad deal. All right, Chamber of Commerce's a little bit different than a specific networking group, but they're very active and there are a lot of opportunities to get involved. And we'll talk about the Chamber website for Austin here in just a moment. But for example, because we're out here in Cedar Park and this church is very involved in the community, they open up this auditorium for the Cedar Park Chamber meeting, which is this Wednesday right here. Registration may be closed, but you show up. It's $15 if you're a member, $20 if you're not. And very truly that you need to come early, shake a lot of hands. They'll have people that are specifically wanting to, grab your hand, introduce themselves. They're looking for new members. They'll have a speaker. Matter of fact, this Wednesday's speaker is an HR lady that I know, and she's extremely knowledgeable. If you have some questions about the onboarding process or what people can ask you in an interview process, Carolyn Valentine. Yes, ma'am. It's noon. So, come in 11:45 or so and start talking and shaking hands, and then they'll have a buffet meal from a local provider, and then they'll have the speaker, some awards, and I think they even have some grab bag prizes if you put your card in the bucket. City of Austin, or the Greater Austin Area Chamber, is very active. Georgetown really focuses in Georgetown, some of the other communities, and so you'll find some good opportunities there to get involved. The Austin Chamber website, very helpful. If you say, well, I'm looking for one of these new companies. We're hearing about all this growth in Austin, people moving into town, and there will be a list of new companies in town and new opportunities. I looked at the website this morning, and they listed a company that was recently had moved into town. They're looking for 150 positions, and they listed 3 or 4 categories of the job people that they're looking for. So you can fish around and find a lot of information there, as well as the Austin Business Journal. Very handy. They are very much on top of what's going on in the local Austin business community. And you'll find meetup opportunities. You'll find people that have just come into town and opened up that are looking for positions geographically as well. There are places to go and meet and network, all listed on the Business Journal. And you get that electronically. You used to have to go to Barnes & Noble and buy a paper copy. They're the ones that put out the Austin Business Journal list of the growth and the top companies in different categories and things of that nature. So that's their job, is to be very active in the community. But the website is free, and you can poke around on that and find out a lot of different things about it. So once again, if you're looking, start Googling and look for trade associations. Typically, they'll meet once a month. Business incubators. Downtown in the Omni Hotel is the Capital Factory. They're probably one of the most well-known. And they host different types of meetups and networking groups. Tuesday night, I went and heard a young man talking about a web service newsletter business that they're in. And very interesting. Workshops. We have people that will give live person workshops in your particular industry, and it's a great opportunity to go once again and shake hands. And then if you want to get involved in a service type group, Rotary, Kiwanis, and Lions Clubs, typically these folks have been in their jobs for a long time. Tends to be a slightly older demographic, and they have a real strong opportunity to take you under their wing and introduce you around as well. All right, anybody seen this Teddy Roosevelt quote? It's extremely well known over the years. Essentially, it's saying it's better to get out there and hit it hard, work hard, stick your nose into things, and even if you get beat up and lost, you know that you tried, other than the person that just kind of sat on their hands. And so that's why you're here. You're in this particular category of the people that are out there making things happen for themselves, working hard. So a picture's worth 1,000 words. I thought this was a good one. Does this guy look determined and serious and focused? There's another great one of him with this big toothy laugh. I probably should have got that one. But these guys are pretty cool. So what we're looking at is this process. So when you meet somebody at a networking group, don't rush home and send them a thank you note on the same day. We want to drip your contact information out to them and your presence. So within a day or two, just send them a thank you note. Man, it was great meeting you, Jeff, at Job Seekers last Monday morning. Let's stay in touch. And then a couple of days later, we look and we see that he has a LinkedIn profile. And so we just send a petition. We start following him on Twitter. And then on Facebook, we ask for a connection as well. There's those three areas that you can reach out and connect without being invasive. And there are ways to do the whole LinkedIn thing instead of, will you join my professional network? Take a look at their background and say, I'm picking on Jeff because we spoke before. He said, hey, noticed you went to Texas State. So did I. How's your experience there? You know, I hope that degree's really working for you. That sort of thing. So do that in a few days, and then if you think there's a real strong opportunity, go ahead and make a call or send an email saying, you know, I'd certainly like to sit down with you for a short period of time, find out about your business model. Sometimes if somebody's extremely busy, you might just simply ask for a phone appointment. And I put a time limit on things. Everybody's very cautious about their use of time, and I would say, can I borrow 10 minutes? Can I borrow 15 minutes of your time at 10 o'clock next Tuesday? So you have an appointment. And then it's incumbent upon you, of course, to make that call. All right, so there's a follow-up process. It's more of and by the way, I have links to this presentation at the end. They'll have an opportunity. So I have this presentation and then a following one on some networking skills on a WordPress website. So you can jot that down. But it does help to take notes. I like to take notes. It tends to create more memory process. All right, so this whole thing about LinkedIn. LinkedIn has some amazing stats about the millions of people and the numbers of connections that they're making and the opportunity there. So I put up my profile, and what you want to do also on your particular profile is not make it a hobby profile, not make it, you know, I love my grandkids, and that's fine down at the bottom. But you want to present your skills. It's your e-resume. I would also recommend that there's an abbreviated URL for this particular site, and you can go and abbreviate that, and then when you send an email under your name, you would have your email address and also your LinkedIn URL, and have it connected so that people can simply click on that without having to search for you and go find and look at your profile. So there's the bottom half of mine, and I took it from being personal to more business, although I did include, if I had it here, a picture of my oldest daughter and granddaughter because I thought it was a great picture. So you want to be a little bit personal anyway. Okay, so there are other things you can do. You can join groups. You're allowed to join up to 50 groups. And then if you look up in the upper right-hand corner, it says members. So let me go back and address the groups thing. The groups people will have discussions that are going on with people that are in a certain arena. All patch, we're probably talking jobs. If you're an electrical engineer, there's a group there. If you're a technical manufacturer in the Austin area, there's a group for that. There's a LinkedIn group. So you can join and start posting in there, but also when you look into that group, they will have a section that says jobs. So if you're looking in a particular industry, there may be a hidden job in there, and there's also, if you go to your homepage on link, there's also a jobs category. So if people are posting there, a lot of recruiters use LinkedIn, and so I have run into people that would have as many as 30 to 50,000 connections because they're looking for recruiting type situations. So that's what, once again, if you look in that upper right-hand corner, this is LinkedIn Austin. They have over 18,000 people. Probably 95% of those folks are local Austin area people. So what you can do is ask for the members in the group and just take a look. And if you see somebody you want to connect with, you can click on their link, go to their profile, and hit connect, and it'll give you an opportunity to do that. If you're looking for a specific job category, I pulled up one that has CEO. I found out later that you can set parameters around that and to the industry or the size of the company you're looking for. A lot of people are avoiding startups simply because the cash flow is problematic. Not sure if the things are going to survive, and you cast your hat in that ring, and then 6 months later, they're closing the doors. So you have to be careful about that. But there are ways that you can look at these companies and find out how big they are and how many folks. So if you look at this guy, Danny Smith used to spend a lot of time volunteering up here, and I can't see it that well, but now, if you look in this area that says contact, if they list their email and their phone number, most of the people will have a personal email. That's a great way for you to find out, how to send that email out and just let them know you're interested about their business. So it's just a little button there that if you don't look at it, it doesn't populate until you click on the button for the contact information. All right, there's a way that this little pop-up box is going to say, how do you know me? And so as far as I'm concerned, especially in my industry, I'm a colleague. And so what you do is you click on there and you pick the company that you've worked for or what you're doing right now, and then write a personal note. If you do this, I just want to connect with you on LinkedIn thing, that's what everybody gets. But if you say, hey, I noticed that you spent some time in my industry. I sat down with a guy a couple of weeks ago, and we found out that we had both worked for a division of the 3M company 30 years ago that's now extinct. And we knew some of the same people. And I knew that because I'd looked at his LinkedIn profile and we had connected. It was a great segue into a conversation. Once you make these petitions to connect, a different area will pop up, and you can go back and see if they actually accepted your connection. So we'll see that most of the people took mine in, but for some reason, James Summers didn't like Gary Seale very much, or he just neglected to sign in to LinkedIn. I don't know. But that's a way you can find out if somebody's actually connected. And then if you have the paid version, you can email back and forth within the context of LinkedIn. So once again, we're looking at this concept of following up, and so we're giving you a lot of, this is what you need to do, and so you need to be very organized. So what I do is my CRM is most important. So once again, perseverance. We'll get the CRM thing in just a second. You have expertise. You know, you've done something repetitively, and I'm sure you've heard this quote, that it takes 10,000 touches to be an expert. You probably had 10,000 touches in an area, so you know something extremely well. So like Thomas Edison's quotes, you know, he found, I didn't find a way to make a light bulb, I found 1,000 ways not to make one. I understand that his research lab burned to the ground in the early 1900s, and his basic statement is, well, we have an opportunity to start over and start fresh instead of, oh, what's me? So CRM, very quickly, there are some free ones out there. I would just Google them and take a look at them. I use one because I'm running my business through it, and Act 2011, you can go up to 2016. There are 14 fields up here, so you can populate all the contact information, name, number, title, phone number, email, website, you know. And then once you start creating history, you can look at what you've done, or you can schedule yourself out. So if you met 20 people during the last week and you have all these contact segments built in, this is the way to manage that. So I highly recommend that you use a CRM, and it's a great skill to have when you plugged into any kind of sales and marketing operation. Yes, sir?
What's the acronym?
ACT is ACT, but CRM is Contact Resource Management Tool. So just a database manager. Some people will use Excel. If you have Microsoft on your computer, they have Outlook. I think Outlook is okay, but it doesn't give you quite as many tools as I like to have, especially in a reporting concept. All right, so we are up to what, 9:39. We've got just a couple of minutes. We're going to blow through. Yes, sir?
Real quickly, you mentioned that there were some apps when you meet somebody. I know the old Palm Pilot would
Sync up, yeah.
Is there any favorites that you have?
I don't use it. I'm a card guy. I just know they exist. I see people doing that stuff. I just got a new iPhone a few months ago. It's probably in there and free, and haven't done it. So, you know, I'm 64, guys. So that's a telling tale. My granddaughter can probably do some things that I can't do, and she's 4 years old. All right, this whole aspect of character and no vacillation, I think there's a strong aspect of having a plan and executing your plan. I typically am very organized and focused, but if I allow myself 3 or 4 hours on my calendar and I don't have a process or a plan, I end up frittering my time away, and I look up at 5 o'clock and say, what did I do for the last 3 hours? So I really think this pre-planning and execution is huge. So what we wanted to go through really quickly, once again, there's going to be links that we can let you, I think I've just got like 3 or 4 minutes here to blow through this. What Travis Bradbury is a PhD that wrote a book called Emotional Intelligence, and it basically is saying you need to know where you're at emotionally. So what he says, and I underline the highlights here, is we can let about 6 or 7 things block us from doing this networking. Everything from shyness to arrogance, the two extremes, right? So we just have to throw that hat away. I have a friend of mine, Scott Carley, and he says, okay, when you're driving to that networking meeting, put on your happy hat, put on your connector hat, and blow away all this other stuff so you can get out there and be yourself. Leave a strong first impression. If you speak in an extremely soft tone and you're regressive and you're leaning back and you're looking at everybody with cynicism, it just doesn't sell. So we've got what he says, 7 seconds. And we all know that. We're looking at somebody and looking at the way they dress, their posture, and you can look at that guy, man, he was in the military. He's straight up. So you have to be enthusiastic and come in. When you get that opportunity, I don't mind a hand pump. Somebody thinks I'm running for office, but they go, man, that guy's determined. He knows where he's coming from. All right. Says, don't be so superficial. I'm guilty. What did I say when somebody said, how are you doing this morning? I said, it's chilly outside. Well, that was really deep, wasn't it? So we can ask somebody is, how'd you get into this industry? Why do you attend this event? I'm just curious. Tell me about your business model. And people love to talk about their own business, right? So that's the thing about asking substantial questions. And then learn from them. When I moved from corporate sales into a smaller B2B world, man, I love to sit down with somebody. How do you do it? What worked for you? What was the first 3 years like? There are things that people will tell you, and because we have a very experienced group in the crowd, if they only say one thing that has an impact on you, then that was a useful conversation. Okay. We have to be careful about being a little cynical. We're in the political time of the United States, right? And you may have your favorite candidate, but somebody comes up and says, I'm for so-and-so, and you go, you fall over laughing, or you got to be kidding. You just can't do that stuff. You have to look for the value of the person. And there are a lot of ways to do that. With our facial expression tells 1,000 tales, and we just have to keep it optimistic. So we're looking for the good in that person. This is all kind of a strategy that you use as you're interfacing with somebody. Smiling. Man, we remember people that smile, don't we? I'm such a serious type high A personality. I'm looking to get the task accomplished. And so I'm beginning to judge whether this was a good time. How did I spend my hour and a half? And so, like that. So we don't want to do that. The people that are smiling, I can see you out there. You're leaving a better impression. And I'm guilty. I get real comfortable, especially when I'm listening to somebody. I'll cross my arms and lean back. Man, that's the I'm not buying symbol right there. So we want to smile. Use their name. Name tags are great, right? Even at HEB, when you go through the checkout line, use their name. But when you're seriously having that conversation with somebody, the concept of making them valuable by saying, hey, David, how are you doing this morning? And so David immediately feels a little bit more of a connection. He's shaking his head up and down. I made a connection there instead of it, hey, you, the guy in the blue shirt. That sort of thing. The treat people as they want to be treated. I think this whole concept of having a protocol when you're networking and not barging in the conversation and not being rude, arrogant, whatever, it's a judgment call, but treat people the way they would like to be treated. And don't make it a contest. From the standpoint that you meet people and they achieve something really significant in your industry or your career path, and all the time you're thinking, well, so did I. I worked at Motorola and I designed this unique chip and all this kind of stuff. And you're thinking about what you're going to say to overcome them. So we don't want to make it a contest. All right, and that's what I'm talking about. Turn off your inner voice, guilty. You say, I want to be engaged in this conversation while this person is explaining their business model. You're thinking of something to say, so you're only like half listening. So we don't want to do that. And that concludes my talk. So hopefully you saw some stuff and ways. Navigate around those websites. You're going to find just myriads of opportunity. So the top one is the connection thing that I put together personally with all the links to the Chamber of Commerce and the BNI groups and meetup.com. So I know that's a long URL. Well, the other one is longer. And that one, quite frankly, I have to give credit. Travis Bradbury is a PhD that publishes a lot of stuff. He wrote a book. I agree with probably 95% of the stuff that he writes. There are some that are real kickouts. But if you want to Google and find Travis, he puts out a lot of these 5 and 8 bulletin point things about interconnections with people, how to conduct yourself, and things of that nature. So I'll let you jot those things down. And then if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them unless they're super high tech. Yes, sir.
Some of the meeting groups you talked about, the different BNIs, all that stuff, will they be somewhere in one of these?
All you have to do is Google BNI Austin, and then they'll have a link to all their clubs when they meet.
Well, but you mentioned specifically lunch meetings that you go to. You mentioned a bunch.
Yes. I think Metropolitan Breakfast Club is not, so you want to jot that down. And then the CBLG group that meets Fridays at Texas Land and Cattle is on Meetup. So you can find that. Yes, ma'am. It's through that link. It's on a WordPress site that I have. This link will take you to all those slides. Yeah. Very good. Well, I wish you the absolute very best in connecting. It does take some time and effort, but make it part of your job. It really works. Craig?
Thank you, Gary.